Up next, I'd like to introduce you to Avasant's large deal advisors and partners.
Thank you, Adriana, and good morning, afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to join the sessions today with my partner Joe Frampus, and very excited about this part of the day because we all are always excited about seeing the large deals back. I think that when we think about the evolution of outsourcing and where we are today and all the things that we've heard this morning in terms of what COVID has done with the global economy, what COVID has done with the vendor community, with the companies, different companies around the world, and with the consumers, all of these churns and all of these things have created and accelerated the evolution of outsourcing and the return to the large deals. If we a lot of you are very experienced, have been in the business for a long time. We went going from the tactical outsourcing, looking at the long-term contracts, FTE-based constructs, focus on labor arbitrage and whatnot. Then kind of late in the 2010s, we began to move into the strategic outsourcing. And there is still a lot of companies that are still doing a strategic outsourcing, but what we're going to talk about is how that has evolved very rapidly and being confirmed in the last couple of years, and in which companies began to do output-based engagements with some delivery flexibility, a lot more offshoring, doing some process engineering, and kind of having some hybrid models, really focusing on cost optimization, productivity, and at some level of technology readiness. But what is happening, and based on what we heard a few minutes ago in terms of what is happening in the market in terms of the digital practice maturity, the digital execution, and the feature centricity, what that has brought to bear here is what we are doing now with the transformational outsourcing. That is what the new large deals are all about. I think in the past we saw going from single source, large long-term contracts into a multi-source environment, a lot of different vendors doing all of those things. But what's happening is clients, especially with COVID, clients really saw a shock in terms of how their business was running. And then they realized how much shock the vendor community was dealing with as a way to provide those services and the value that they needed to be able to get, just not from the vendor, but as a company. It is just, so the shift in cultural behavior moved from, I am receiving services from my partners, from my suppliers, but how do we partner, take things to the next level? And that caused this initial change of the ecosystem of partners to move again into a, into not much into a multi-sourcing all the way, going everywhere, but doing a lot of consolidation and simplification of the environment, bringing new capabilities, new solution in a hybrid model internally that not only include elements of IT, the IT traditional towers as we know them, but also bringing a lot of the business process as a service in an integrated business process management. That became kind of more into play in the last couple of years. And we also noticed that a lot of them became outcome-based fee as a percentage of a spend. So the evolution of the level of partnership and the skin in the game when a plug and play services began to be more and more in our contracts. We have several clients that have moved from even 2 or 3 different suppliers to 1 or 2, and simplifying a lot of the other smaller providers, because as you know, there is a lot of acquisition. So there's a lot of acquisition, a lot of different technologies and elements that are just focusing on the digital offerings and bringing top digital talent, having different created engagement models. So all of those things have made a lot of you more stronger to be able to play in larger pieces of the deal. That's what it is bringing now, making these things transformational outsourcing and the return of the large deals. So, what Joe and I will talk about is what we're seeing with some of our clients, what they're buying, and what kind of changes or what kind of adjustments we are seeing in the supplier community to be able to adjust to these things, so that the focus is just not cost optimization and operational efficiencies. Those are table stakes. It's just about providing and being the driver of higher client revenue and higher customer experience. That is the shift that clients are now looking for more, and have this traditional ongoing kind of contracting to be able to drive their business forward. So based on that, I mean, Joe, what you're seeing with some of your clients in terms of in the new construct of the large deals?
So there's a couple things there. You said a lot around the transformational aspect. We're seeing a lot of, especially from a business point of view. But one of the things, and I've seen in a couple of the clients now, is the large consolidation efforts. And what customers were realizing a couple years ago, and actually more during COVID, was that they had. I mean, we have a couple clients that have hundreds of suppliers, and doing this work for them. And during this time frame, what has happened? They realized that, oh my God, I have 5 of them doing the same thing. So what they're what they're trying to do is say, okay, let me simplify my governance. Let me simplify, the number of suppliers that I've had. And so what's happening is they're taking a lot of this work that they massed out 5 different ways, and then said, okay, I'm bringing it back to 1. And so as a result of that, what's happening is they're being able to leverage one supplier more than others. They're actually, making that supplier 5 times more business than what they had. So they're kind of, the consolidation has been the big piece, at least in the clients that I've been working with there. Now, the other aspect of this is the transformational piece, is where, you know what, I go into these organizations and it's not about IT, it's about how am I increasing my revenue? How am I doing this? And so the business aspect is what's forcing the IT organizations to actually up their game and to bring in more suppliers, or a bigger supplier ecosystem, and the deal gets larger because it's now affecting the business, not just the widgets in IT. So, it's the business aspect of this which is growing these deals too.
Now, does that mean that the large deals are, we went from the $300-400 million deals kind of back to the 70-80 million for 3, 4, 5 providers. Now we're seeing deals, north of 100-150 million. See, like, and some of 300-400 million, depending on the size of the global company. So that is, and for everybody, what we look at large deals up north of $100 million now. But we are seeing what another element that is making them be bigger deals and more interesting deals are the BPO element of it. There is a tremendous business transformation, tremendous business process transformation that is taking place. So the vendors are being now tasked to just drive that transformation from the business perspective, injecting all that technology, integrate technology as part of the deal. That's what all the acquisitions that we're seeing, all the digital transformation, that is table stakes already. It is just how do we drive that business transformation, and then the vendors now are being part of that. That is what is making the deals bigger deals. We have 3 or 4 clients are just having that exact same construct. It's just not looking at IT, it's looking at business transformation with IT kind of being the foundation of it underneath.
Now, the other interesting thing too about that, Carlos, is I think you're going to see an uptick of deals even over 500 million. But the interesting piece of that is, we have a couple clients where they created, we're going to say, Supplier A, I want you to run this whole thing for me. But what the Supplier A is doing is they're bringing in an ecosystem of partners, whether it's for network, or it's for cloud. So the overall deal is ranging well over 500 million now, but it's split amongst probably 2, 3, or 4 of these guys. But it's one deal for one supplier to manage that, versus the customer having to manage those 3 or 4 suppliers. They're saying is, Supplier A, I want you to bring in an ecosystem of basically best practices, where you as Supplier A may not have all the talent or all the skill sets to provide that whole thing, but it's one deal.
Right.
So
and part of this, and part of this that they brought a lot of movement in terms of RFP development. And this is interesting because there is a shortage of talent. So some companies have to lay out a lot of people. There was just a talent shortage across the board. And now with the accelerated transformation happening in a lot of organizations, everybody is tapped out. There's just no talent, no resources. So that has created a lot of the need to run RFP processes. And the way that Avasant has been now involved, we get involved in the transformational strategy and driving that transformation at the different work streams, right? But as we go through this, what clients are asking us to do is keep going and keep driving this, and let's just run these different procurement processes as we go along so that we can achieve that consolidation as part of our internal transformation, moving vendor management and vendor governance to be even simpler than used to be in the past, right? Making it more part of the overall management of IT and the business, not just having necessarily a traditional VMO with all the different pillars. It's just looking at things and how do we manage the business together, suppliers and internal delivery organizations as a whole, kind of what we are calling the virtual COE. So that requires a significant shift. But again, that creates the bigger deals and a bigger opportunity for all of you. And as you think to this, it's important for you to, when you talk to us and as you talk to your clients, what are the different levers that you got to be looking at, and as part of your commitment to continue to drive those large deals, right? Those large.
One other aspect of these larger deals too, Carlos, is that we're now seeing customers no longer. Customers no longer want to own hardware. I know from the supplier community. I know when all this happened back in the early 2000s, when TPI at the time said, you know what, customers should own all their equipment, and that's how the market went for many, many years. And now what's happening is they're being left with stranded assets, things that they don't want. And these deals, if you're not looking at this transformation and owning equipment and doing whatever it is you do, and if you're just telling the client to own that equipment, I think you're making a big mistake. And that, because that's what's also driving the size of these deals,
right? Is
that equipment is going away. My customers don't want to own it anymore. And so the supplier community has to understand that.
Right. Another element, Joe, that I have noticed with a lot of my clients as part of now all being data-driven decision-making process, just not as I'm sure in the vendor community are noticing that clients are not buying the way that they used to buy, which was, hey, I'm going to save you 50 million. I can do what one of my competitors is doing for 30% less. They're not going to be able to listen to these things as much as they used to in the past, because they cannot take that risk, because they're going to be asked for evidence. And then the evidence that we used to be able to show in the past has lost credibility because all the COVID changes. So now clients are asking us to benchmark a lot of their business processes, services, and technology with their peers, so they can identify, am I spending my money in the right places? Am I, where do I have my dollar? Where am I investing? And how it is my supplier ecosystem here and my spend in a way that can allows me to optimize and gain more value from what I'm doing. So that is a different element that I think that you guys probably know yourself with your clients is what we're doing in the industry benchmarks, right? CFOs are driving to this, you're making the decisions based on that, and then telling the chief digital officers, chief transformation officers, and some CIOs, this is how you have to drive your transformation roadmap with the partners, driving, basically getting us to higher revenue and customer experience. That is critical, and that is part of what is creating this large deal. So it is kind of part of your narrative and the shift that you guys are making in the go-to-market strategy, which is like, how do we make this to be a more of a data-driven decision as opposed to like a promise to make it cheaper, better, and more effective. So I think that, takeaway is continue to evolve, continue to make those acquisitions, and continue to drive the conversations with your clients based on real data, based on evidence on how things have changed, and driving things from the customer experience and revenue generation and business growth perspective, as opposed to being the provider of technology services. the more business partner you are with our clients, driven by technology, transformation, and so on, the bigger deals you're going to be able to construct with them. That is how it is that we're doing as part of the transformational outsourcing advisory with our clients. So let's have some additional conversations and talk about how we are being able to make those changes so that we can partner better together.